all ours. How dare I take it for granted? Sounds fair for me to give back, but I can't like you do, 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 like you do.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Tell You What, the podcast, where we talk with songwriters about the craft of songwriting, live performance, and all the other things. Our guests on this episode are Deni Hlavinka and Chris West of the West and Deni. Chris and Deni have been making music together since meeting in 2011 at the Berklee College of Music, and they had just released their first full-length album, A Light Left On. I will keep these intro remarks brief. Chris and Deni had a lot of interesting things to say in our chat, so it went a bit longer than usual. But let me say this album has completely won me over. I must give full credit to the executive director and lighting technician of Tell You What Studios, who first recognized the brilliance of this music. And as usual, she was spot on correct. These arrangements are intricate, yet restrained and confident, and lyrically, Chris and Deni show wisdom beyond their years. I will also add that they are wonderful people. We've had their entire band, including Catherine, Alec, and Sean, stay with us here a couple of times, and it has been delightful and fun. Susan and I are now proud to call them our friends. They put on an incredible show here at Tell You What Studios. They had our crowd stupefied with their musicianship and the soundscapes they were able to create in our living room. So let's get to it. Here's our chat with Deni and Chris of the West and Deni.
What if I'm tainted, blank stares, a poised apparition? I'm barely human. Light me with your fire. From the inside, or could I ignite?
All right, Chris and Deni, welcome to Tell You What, the podcast. Thank you for joining me here in the 87th floor of the Tell You What Epiplex.
Yes. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
You know, this is one of the only buildings in Wilmette that survived the polar vortex. We were built to survive that, so I hope you appreciate
That's great.
the view that we have from the 87th floor here.
Yeah, it's an apocalyptic wasteland.
Yes, but we are safe.
Yes.
So I can tell you that I'm very much looking forward to the show that you're going to perform here at our studios later today. I hope you both got a good night's sleep last night.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Solid 8 hours.
Maybe not 8.
10 hours.
Chicago can be a late night city, so
Yeah.
you guys had a show last night that was awesome. I was able to go to, so we're looking forward to sharing that with our guests today. So let's start at the beginning. Let's talk a little bit about your backgrounds. Chris, I believe you are our first guest from Bermuda.
Mm-hmm.
Did you grow up there? Was that where you spent all of your youth? And maybe you can talk about what that meant from like a musical exposure perspective, growing up in a, let's say, unique environment like that.
Sure. So I was born in Canada.
Okay.
And I moved there to Bermuda when I was 3 weeks old. Musically, it's an island, so there's a lot of calypso and kind of like reggaeton and reggae and just general island vibes, and that was never really what resonated most with me. I was more so the kid that just picked up an acoustic guitar and would sit in my basement for hours on end trying to, figure out weird tunings that sounded cool and listening to like Mumford & Sons and Bon Iver and stuff like that in my basement.
This was music you discovered on your own, or did your family expose you to
probably
some of this?
my own, yeah.
So at what point did you pick up the guitar?
When I was about 12, my dad played guitar as well, so I think that was a bit of a inspiration behind wanting to...
So your dad was not a musician, but he played guitar.
Yeah, exactly.
And Deni, conversely, you grew up in Virginia?
In Virginia, yeah.
In the
Shenandoah Valley.
Shenandoah Valley.
Yeah.
So a bit of a contrast to Bermuda.
Yeah, totally.
So can you talk about your musical exposure when you were growing up?
Yeah, music was just like always around. My mom every morning would sing Beautiful by Carole King to us to wake us up. And then to go to sleep, she'd sing Sweet Baby James by James Taylor. And I remember, actually, it was so funny when I was in middle school and my mom would do that and I'm like, no more Carole King. But now it's like I realize that that's like a huge fundamental part of my upbringing. I sang a lot in the house, but I really loved the piano.
Okay.
So I took a lot of piano lessons. Well, I sort of taught myself how to play by ear, and then my parents were like, you should probably learn how to actually do this instead. So I took some piano lessons, which turned into like kind of writing songs, and then I would sing with that. So, yeah. So, and then once I started singing, I was actually pursuing classical voice from there. So it's like all these things that come to fruition, and then I just am like, oh, try this lane this time. So I studied classical voice for, I think like 10 years.
Wow.
And,
starting at what age?
Let's see, probably like 12, 13 maybe like middle school age. And yeah, and then much to my voice teacher's dismay, I decided to pursue moody, contemporary, folk, whatever indie thing instead of classical voice. But
you bring the classical voice skills to it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So you mentioned writing music. At what point did that really first start for you, writing your own songs?
My mom found a notebook while she was cleaning up our house a few years ago that was, I think, from like 5th grade, maybe. Really horrifying lyrics. Just reading it is very cringy. But I took it more seriously, maybe, in like 7th and 8th grade. And I think...
So these were lyrics and music at the piano.
Yeah, I would even like write out the sheet music.
Oh, wow.
As like a weird exercise, I think, making sure I knew how to do it. And now we still have the sheet music, so that's kind of fun to like play through things I wrote and actually have the sheet music.
Did you find any ideas in there?
Not really.
Not yet.
It's all very basic and angst of a 7th and 8th grader. So cool to channel that, and that is still me, but
I've raised daughters through 7th and 8th grade, and I don't think I'd want to listen to any songs they wrote. Because they probably had something to do with me, and they were usually not in a good mood. Chris, when did songwriting or music composition start for you, do you think?
I think also at a young age.
Yeah.
Less so in actually writing songs. And this actually didn't register until Deni was describing your mom finding your notebook of old lyrics. But I just had this crazy flashback to, I think, like being like a 10-year-old or around that weird age, and I would write out raps. Like,
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
this is very cool.
I forgot about
Big
this.
news.
But I would like write out raps to like pop songs.
Okay.
And like change the lyrics. And it was all very bizarre and like kind
So
of...
the pop songs were your beats and you wrote raps over them.
So that was very like 10-year-old boyish thing.
Do you have any specifically in mind you want to share with us?
It's just the memory that I did that.
Yes.
Anything beyond that is just gone.
Okay.
It makes more sense now because Chris has a tendency to make up raps in the van.
Yeah. It just helps the time go by.
Yeah. Or really in the morning
or that
evening or any time of day.
You have freestyle skills. Is that what you're claiming?
Skills is generous. That's a generous term.
You have enthusiasm.
So when do you remember actually starting to write?
So actually writing songs, I probably in my early teen years, 13, 14.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, lots of introspection from, like I said before, being that just the kid in my basement, just like, not really vibing with the rest of it.
And did you have any opportunity to perform any of these songs?
Oh gosh,
high school.
I did later in my teen years.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't dare play those songs live when I was writing them.
But it happened.
Yeah.
Chris is on a compilation record in Bermuda.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow.
That they still sell at the one music store.
From your high school.
From high school,
An original song.
Oh yeah.
Where we might have to get our hands on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'll vote against that.
we might be able to edit this out.
Yeah.
How about you, Deni? Were you able to perform any of your original music when you were that young, high school?
Yeah, high school, I would always enter like the talent shows.
Right.
And it was always, because I am from a really small town. So I was like so obsessed with music that I would like perform my original music, and then other people would ask me to like accompany them on the piano. So I would get a lot of stage time. And then
You were the house band for the talent show?
Yeah, which was a real delight. Like,
Yes.
I loved being so involved with so many different people's music and having them like trust me and kind of be the go-to.
Right.
But yeah, I would also do original music, and I would arrange like choir songs and form mini choirs. It was very incestuous. I'm sure that like
So you would form mini choirs just on your own, like forming a band, but in choir
but in
format.
a choir form. I love harmony, and I loved. I was so obsessed with like, again, writing out sheet music and like giving
for
it
the
to
choral
people.
parts also.
Yeah, totally. So I'm sure a lot of people rolled their eyes at how much stage time I got in the Will Tarando high school talent show. People would be like, okay, we get it.
She can play the piano.
She can play the piano. Okay, fine, next. But yeah.
So I like to talk about collaboration. I always find that interesting. And in this particular case, it's particularly interesting because your personal stories begin with collaboration, right? You met via the internet initially and worked on a song together. That was your first time you guys interacted. Can you talk about how that came about? Sorry.
Yeah. So we were accepted to Berklee for the same semester, and then they had a Facebook group, like Berklee Class of 2015, and everyone was just posting their music, and I think there was like a real excitement. Because I feel like a lot of people are kind of like a lot of musicians, and particularly ones that are like obsessive enough to go to music school and like pursue it full time. But everyone kind of is like the kind of black sheep of their community, or like big fish, small pond, and to like kind of all be together in this place. Like everyone was posting YouTube videos of their music, and I posted a SoundCloud link of a song called Runaway, and then it said Runaway Unfinished Demo, and I remember being like, new song, and like
my latest
let
work.
me know what you think, like just generally non-directional, just for anyone to listen to. And then Chris messaged me on Facebook and was like, I really like your song, and then I think he downloaded it, and well, you can tell the rest because I wasn't there. I just received the final product.
I probably downloaded it and wrote something to it before I even messaged you, but
that makes me happy.
Probably, I don't know.
That's cool.
But
yeah.
So I downloaded it, and I think I wrote like a guitar part to it, and then like a second verse
and harmonies.
Wow.
To the thing I had already recorded, which was
that's neat.
Just a delight. Like the only collaboration that I had done previously is through the Sharando High School talent show.
Right.
So to actually like have a song that means something to me, and have someone like compliment that without even meeting, like that felt really special. So so that's sort of how our collaboration began.
Yeah. And my collaboration was with myself multi-tracking on GarageBand.
Right. So for both of you, this was the first real time you'd worked with someone else on a piece of music.
Yeah. And it was cool that I thought our voices matched really well, which is really a delight to kind of find that bond from, 1,000 miles away. How far away is Bermuda from Virginia? Doesn't matter.
Gosh.
Semantics.
Pretty far
Yeah.
in cultural terms, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So did that lead to you two immediately working together on other things when you arrived at school, or did that kind of...
Yeah,
I think
we
even,
met like...
Even before?
Yeah, I think we even like sent other songs back and forth and maybe experimented on that. I can't really remember. But it was so exciting. Yeah, and then the first day I think we went to a practice room and started playing.
That day.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, it's very addictive when you find someone that kind of matches you.
Yeah.
It's
So let's
cool.
talk about your collaborative process. Have you developed a standard way of creating? Like, do you each work individually on something and bring it to the other, or is it from the get-go? Are you interacting? How does that, if there is a standard-ish kind of way?
It's kind of all of the above. It depends. Like, I think more often than not, it is us, like, the seed is started separately.
Mm-hmm.
But we have done a lot of collaborating, like, in real time, write the song start to finish in the same space. But the thing about the creative process, I think Mitski, she's an artist, she said in an interview that when people ask, like, where does a song come from? It's more often than not, like, I don't know, I just wrote a song. I have no idea what happened.
All right, let me cross that question off my list.
No, it's a great question.
No, it's a great question.
I don't actually have it.
Oh. But it's like, so you kind of always, as an artist, have to be open to that. So oftentimes Chris and I aren't in the same place or in the same room together, and, like, you just have to listen to that, like, spark when it comes. And then we have so many voice memos on our phones of, like, humming in the car a melody or something, and then we'll send it, and we'll either use it or we won't. But it's usually something that we can kind of jump off of, like a kind of launching point to something creative.
I think you like the goal is just to be constantly creating. And when you do kind of really try to get in that mindset pretty frequently, the amount of ideas and seeds that you're working with is pretty endless. And so that is one thing that has always made collaborating so much easier, because even if we are starting, together in the same room from start to finish, it's really difficult to even say that, like, there hasn't been an idea that's already been started somewhere previously before you bring it to each other.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you feel that one or the other of you emphasizes one part of the process more than the other, like more lyrics from one side or the harmonies or melody lines or anything like that? Or is it all coming in from both sides?
It's pretty even.
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on the song. Like, on our album, like, I could, like, point to the ones that I wrote more of, and you could point to the ones that you wrote more of. But then they all kind of blur, especially if we're collaborating in the same room. Like, Chris will write a lyric, and then I'll be like, what if we change this one word in the line? And then it's a collaborative effort. So, it just depends on the song. I think both of our writing voices are similar, so the way we write lyrics is kind of, like, complementary to one another. So even if there's, like, an entire verse that Chris wrote and then an entire verse that I wrote, I think that the flow between us is good enough that it doesn't have to be.
I would, from listening to the album, even though you trade off the vocals, I think I would agree with what you're saying. It is hard for me to say, these are the two types of songs or lyrics that have been written.
Right, like, this is a classic Chris lyric
or
something. But I guess it's kind of a weird, vague answer that it just, like, it all depends. Yeah.
I can say that you both are probably lyrically strong after watching a very intense game of Catchphrase Junior at the house. It was a difficult competition. You were on opposite teams.
Yep,
Yeah.
you were.
And I believe I stumbled over the word shoes, but you both showed your vocabulary skills.
All right.
Okay.
Catchphrase Junior inspires our lyrics.
So emphasis on Junior.
So do you think that your different kind of upbringings you had in terms of they were from different parts of the world, really. Do you think that brings something to the table in terms of the diversity of the upbringings that the two of you had?
Yeah. I think so. I mean, I'm also hogging a lot of
No,
it.
you take this
Okay,
question.
so we kind of, I remember when we first started collaborating, because, I mean, I guess it's not really your upbringing, it's more of what you were referring to earlier about how you would play guitar in your basement and listen to, like, Mumford and Sons and Bon Iver and kind of, like, this kind of guitar-y, folksy, but kind of more ambient. Well, Mumford and Sons isn't ambient, but...
Yeah, but it's kind of pushing that...
The envelope.
Yeah.
But still acoustic. And I was in this, like, ambient piano choir, like, ethereal world.
Okay.
And so I think you brought this, like, lovely, like, structure to the, like, project where it's, like, acoustic guitar, like, or electric guitar. Just something that stabilizes it, where I feel like I'm, like, this weird floaty writing process instead. And so I think it just balances really well.
Yeah, because that's been something that I've kind of wanted in my music that I was missing. Yeah, growing up. Crazy harmonies, you know, and like
Sing
and yeah, just that ethereal aspect.
Right. So it's not necessarily a geographic or cultural difference, but more of just the musical approach.
Sure,
yeah. Which was very different. Yeah. Because I think on paper, you know, I'm like, I think a lot of people, I'm from the birthplace of Patsy Cline.
Right.
And it's super folksy. There's a lot of like bluegrass bands in my hometown, but I've never really been in that world.
Yep.
So yeah, culturally, regionally, I feel like a odd bird.
Yeah,
but,
totally.
Yeah.
I'm like
and it's
home of the rum swizzle.
The Bermuda rum swizzle.
Bermuda rum swizzle. And
Yeah.
like, you know,
I think
beach
there's a
life
song about the rum swizzle waiting to be
there should
written.
be.
Oh, yeah.
So as you mentioned, you both went to the renowned Berklee College of Music, where I assumed, and I think we may have talked about this the last time you were here, you did some study of songwriting, like from an academic.
Yeah.
Kristen
I studied songwriting. Yeah.
So can you talk about the academic approach to the songwriting craft? You know, many songwriters, most probably come to songwriting on their own. They maybe read a book or just listen to music and kind of figure it out. Here you were in an academic setting, learning the craft of songwriting. I just want to hear what you have to say about that and how it has played into the way you approach the craft.
Sure. Well, it's definitely a highly structured thing when you're studying it. You know, you're taking usually about 3 songwriting classes a week. And in each of them, the teachers really want you to get those motors running and constantly be writing. So we would be tasked with writing a song a week in each class.
Wow.
So 3 songs a week
Wow.
for a semester, for the most part, was the case. And I should say I did not complete them all. Because
That is a pretty tall order.
Yeah, and I feel like my upbringing with songwriting was very relaxed and very patient. And if a song wasn't feeling right, that was somewhat discouraging, and you just kind of have to let it breathe a little bit.
Time-wise.
Exactly,
Yes.
yeah. So, yeah, that was a huge difference in terms of how to adjust to writing a song a week or 3 songs a week, whatever it may be, versus coming from this place where, you know, I would spend sometimes 2 months on a song,
right,
and then I still don't think it's finished.
Now, was some of this approach from their perspective because they wanted to produce people who were songwriters for a living, where the product was important to keep turning it out?
Yes, for sure. And there's definitely 2 facets of the songwriting major at Berklee. One being, you know, the folks that are going to be moving to Los Angeles, moving to Nashville, and just kind of writing like straight up hits,
right?
Whether it's a country hit or a pop hit, but like the songs you hear on the radio are going to be written by those people,
right?
And then there are some lovely professors who, you know, their mission is to just like get that emotion out of you and put it into song. Melissa Farrick is one of those professors who I found like great joy with studying songwriting with. Yeah, she just really pushes you to explore different parts of the song emotionally, and she can really like just tell when you're faking it too. And she would often say, I had a directed study class with her, so it was just one-on-one.
Right.
And I'd bring a song to her and she'd just be like, yeah, that's cool, but like, what are you saying? So there's definitely two parts of the songwriting major, I'd say.
So if you look at the way you approach songwriting now, from that kind of product-driven environment, what do you think you took from that, if anything?
I feel like I probably have an ability to just like push through if I'm not feeling it. If a song's not coming to me right away, or there's not this kind of highly romanticized version of what writing a song can sometimes seem like, of just like, it just came to me. And sometimes that's the case. But when that immediate inspiration isn't there, I feel like having that structured kind of study was really helpful in finding different techniques to push through and just, write a song.
Okay, so we were talking about collaboration. Let's go more specifically in terms of a song on the new album.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the song Hem. Let's see if we can talk about this a little bit abstractly. I don't think we need to get too personal here, but you two are in a romantic relationship as well as professional. You write songs about relationships. And maybe if you could, like I said, without getting too personal, can you talk about that concept a little bit, about writing about relationships with each other while in a relationship? And then maybe specifically about the song Hem, which seems to me to be about kind of finding your way in a new relationship, finding your space in there. So wherever that long-winded question leads, if you want to just talk in that space somewhere.
We don't get that question a lot, but sometimes, because it is complicated. A lot of our songs look at love in a doubtful way, specifically Hem. I think it's just about, that song's about individualism, and then but also about like the over romanticization of love, and about kind of, I don't know, just thinking that you have like one soulmate and they should just get you 100% of the time, and you shouldn't try, like all of these things which we know by being in a long-term relationship, and we're getting married in 61 days.
There you go.
But we have learned to navigate that. So, that song specifically is about being like over romanticizing love, and then also being like jaded by it. I think the more times your heart breaks, the less you kind of believe in love.
The chorus kind of depicts that the best, where specifically the line, what a pretty little homily, if only it could keep me. I think that really kind of is a kind of all-encompassing thought to the idea of being jaded by it. It's like, this is really, really nice, but, am I in this? Maybe not. Yeah,
and I think it's just, I think Chris and I have been doing a lot of, like, reflecting on, like, you have one path in life, so we're just, like, on this timeline, and like you get to choose who you want to like spend it with, and like there is that certainty and that like confidence when you find your partner, but there is like that little voice of like parallel universe. What would happen if we didn't go to Berklee? Like who would we be, and like with who would we like, I don't know, who would we find love within? Like, there's all of these other paths that life, like, could have taken. And so there's, like, this little voice of, I wouldn't say doubt. I don't speak of this personally. I don't have doubt. But it's, as a human, I think we're all just winging it at all times.
I know I am.
Yeah. We're all just going along for the ride. And I think... like trusting your gut is important, but that song specifically carries the doubt of even knowing if like trusting your intuition is the right thing. Like, are we influenced by our surroundings in a way that causes us to like, I don't know, like kind of form our own narrative that might be artificial. Like, have you been in too many negative relationships that you'll just magnify one red flag so that you protect yourself? It's about like building walls, and I don't know, it kind of has a darker undertone despite being one of the more upbeat songs, particularly in our set too.
If you're a thread on a sharp knife, always cutting loose ties, it's habitual, akin to repeat, hemmed up waiting, all still waiting. A solitude decayed to gratify your hands, expecting to be invariably mine. There's a certain kind of love I need. Oh, intently breathing what a pretty little heart I lead. If only it would keep me out swimming in salts, just to feel my blood burn again. But the stinging ring's cold, and I don't know, these eyes don't know that I don't know.
So let's back up then and talk about the new record, The Light Left On, which came out recently. I think it's marvelous, by the way. I've given it a number of listens.
Thank you.
You both should be very proud. I understand you were working on this for quite some time.
Yeah, I think 2 years.
Yeah, about 2 years ago.
We went in the studio. Dimension Sound Studios in Jamaica Plain, Massachusetts. And I think we did 18 days
18
in
full
the
days.
studio. And then there's...
So 2 years ago you did 18 days?
Yes.
Over? Okay.
Yeah, kind of all at once.
Yes.
And
That's
then,
a lot of days.
Yeah. And
Pretty
then
much
you
all
do
went
mixing,
around,
and then you kind of let the record breathe for a little bit. And then we did mastering, and then beyond that, we were like trying to kind of form a team around us so that we could feel supported in the release of a record. I think there is such saturation in the music industry, and people are creating all the time, which is so lovely. But oftentimes people make these albums and then they just put it out and nothing happens. You know, people listen to it maybe and they'll just move on with their day. And we were so afraid of that happening because it meant so much to us. Like, just thematically, it felt like the right sound. So we formed a team around us. We have management and we have a record label now, which the album was put out through them. But yeah, it required a lot of patience, because when you create something that you're excited about, I think one of the hardest things is just keeping it to yourself and keeping it a secret.
So 18 full days in the studio, that's a lot of time.
Yeah.
Was it difficult not to do too much to the songs? There are complicated arrangements on the record, but there's still kind of an air of restraint. And to me, that you talked about within the song Hymn, even though it is a song about questioning, there is a confidence in there. And I think that confidence comes through the restrained yet still complicated arrangements.
Yeah.
So did you have to stop adding or changing things? Was that like a conscious effort?
I would credit so much of that to our producer, Dan Cardinal, because I feel like if we self-produced, I know I have a tendency to want to just add so many things.
Just
and
50 tracks.
Yeah, and you have doubling, and creating like
totally.
Choirs of guitars. And so, I mean, it was a really good lesson, and because it is still enough, you know, like a lot of the arrangements are complicated. I can think of specifically on Company. I don't even know how many tracks are on that. There's a lot. But I can remember ideas that we had where Dan was like, are we totally sure? Because you can, when you let the arrangement breathe a little, that is really effective as well. So, and then it makes these big moments with, hundreds of things, not hundreds of things, dozens of things. It makes that more effective, and like creating that dynamic range is really important. And it also would exhaust listeners and audiences if every song had the same arrangement, same instrumentation. Yeah, and specifically, we keep citing him, but that song, I can think of all of these things that we play it live.
You wanted to do.
Yeah, like when we play it live, the arrangement's a little different than on the record. But when I listen to it on the record, the patience of it is like, it makes the words mean more. It kind of adds to that emotion a little bit. So I was so happy that Dan Cardinal was able to really harness that, because I feel like maybe restraint isn't my strong suit. You're better at it.
I don't know. I feel like I also have a tendency to layer and layer and layer, and patience and restraint was a big theme on the recording process, which I feel was different to our previous methods, because we had self-produced 2 EPs prior to this, and those exporting those tracks was it took a long time, just because it'll be like, now exporting, insert crazy amount of tracks.
Deni Harmony 9.
Yeah, this will take 3 days, 4 hours, and 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, that I tell you, it worked. Like I said, my opening statement about the record was that it showed restraint and that there is confidence there. You are obviously confident in your music, the way you talk about it, and now that comes forth in the album.
Thank you.
You talked about playing the songs live. I did want to ask about that. You have these complicated arrangements. Now you go out on the road with a band, but certainly not what you had in the studio. So how do you approach that? Do you think of them as, well, this is the studio version, now we're going to do this version live? Are you trying to recreate? How do you approach that?
Yeah, I think when we were making this record, at least for me, there's something about being able to replicate a studio performance in a live setting has always been something I've really loved. And when an artist can, not the full thing, but at least, like 80% of it or something. Like you can leave that extra 20% for what just live energy does to a performance in general.
Absolutely.
But so going into the recording of this, I really had it in mind to try to, as we were recording, use different techniques that we can replicate live. And obviously you're not going to get like the exact tones, but so for example, if I used one specific, in Do Not Go on the album, we detuned the acoustic guitar to basically like all of the same string pretty much.
Okay.
And then we put it through a bunch of effects processing and hit it with chopsticks. And so it creates this really kind of dulcimer drone. I'm not gonna bring chopsticks and play that at a live show.
You have to bring another guitar.
We'd
have to kick out Alec of the band. No, just kidding.
But I find ways to create that same atmosphere, just minus the chopsticks. And
So in fact, though, it is your goal to attempt to recreate as closely as possible.
In a certain way that give the live show a similar feel, but also a different feel.
And you welcome that as a musical challenge to do that.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, I think I can't remember specific artists, nor would I say their names, but there is something about listening to an album and falling in love with it, and then seeing the artist live, and your favorite part of a song isn't there, and you're like, oh, man. So I think we obviously can't do everything. There's, again, the chopsticks, and there's like prepared piano, which is when you like mute some strings while you're playing it, and we can't do that.
Right.
But because, well, right now our live setup is 5 people, so we do still have trumpet and violin, so those can kind of achieve that orchestral element
Right.
without needing a full orchestra to
Right.
do it. So yeah, well, we didn't have a full orchestra; we just had a trio. But
Let's talk about another song, Spark Set Fire. I've heard you say before this song is about a first date.
yeah,
And it is sung in the first person, but it has the sense to me of being kind of told from an observer's point of view, like someone overhearing conversation. So can you talk about that song a
yeah.
little bit?
So I do mean that in first person, but it's kind of, I understand, it's like almost like self-observation.
Right.
It's like looking at yourself in those weird moments of a first date in which you are very nervous and wanting to show someone who you are in order to give and receive authentic love, but you can't do it right away. You're putting up this wall. So yeah, the first verse expresses this eagerness to like have those moments and those butterflies, and then the second verse starts with the lyrics, so we put on our cloaks, casual greeting, artificial temperament. So it's like knowing that both parties are doing that, like you both want to just be yourself, but telling yourself to be yourself causes you to perform your own personality.
Yeah. Right.
So it's just sort of this bird's eye view of those doubts and those affirmations, and interpreting glances or interpreting different hand touches or things like that, and protecting yourself while wanting to kind of reach out as well, you know.
The lyric in the chorus, I love it. It's, you say you talk about your mother and I'll talk about mine.
Yeah.
It kind of gives that sense of the mundane yet still critical early stage of a relationship. Like we'll just talk about anything, but it happens to be my mother.
Yeah,
right?
totally. I think that is sort of a breakthrough moment in conversation where it's like, there's just like, small talk. We were visualizing just this like, the classic kind of calibration when you're first communicating, and then, and you talk about your mother and I'll talk about mine, like kind of this balance of we can get personal. Let's talk about our upbringing. Let's talk about who we are and why we've gotten to this point, and kind of opening up together at the same time. And I think talking about family is an effortless way in order to kind of get deeper without kind of bearing your soul.
Yeah, I think you really nailed it with those chorus lyrics.
And you talk about your mother, and I'll talk about mine. Befriender of old lovers, be a friend of mine. To not recoil at my questioning of the criminal kind. A symptom of a flutter, of a spark set fire.
Let's talk about this song, I Still Remain. I really like this one. It seems to be about maybe trying to hold on to something in a relationship, and then at the end of the song, there are kind of two voices talking over each other.
Yeah.
And there's this kind of maybe emblematic of a communication issue maybe in a relationship or something.
Yeah. It's like, so that song is about loving someone who's far away from you. It's like, so either a long distance relationship, but also just someone who's become emotionally distant too. So just that distance, and the first lyric is, I'll make you light up, you are my brightest star, but you've been burning out, I'm too late, you're too far. So that's in reference to, obviously, the light we see from stars is old light. That's not as they are. Most of those stars are dead that you're seeing. So you appreciate them for their beauty, but you're not seeing them in their current state. And it's sort of this, just sort of, you're never on each other's wavelength anymore. So yeah, it's about kind of wanting to hold on, but not knowing if there's like, not being able to trace where the relationship derailed, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's an instrumental round between trumpet and violin that we intentionally did as a round, so they're both playing the same thing, but not at the same time.
Right.
And sometimes it's like consonant, where it like sounds clean and nice together, and sometimes it's really dissonant, but they're never playing it at the same time. It's like this conversation, and then the end of it with the vocal round again. It like just spirals, and it's just everybody is having all of these doubts, but they never like align and come back together.
Where did we get lost? 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 Where did we get lost?
You have the luxury of having two amazing and soulful voices that happen to sound great together. How do you decide on the vocal arrangements? You know, you've each taken lead on different songs. Is that just organically kind of happen, or what's that conversation like?
Yeah, I feel like that depends on typically who wrote the song.
Okay.
I would say that's like the most common case in how that works.
Mm-hmm.
But there's definitely cases where I begin writing something and the only way I can hear this in its finished form is if Deni was to sing it. So
it has happened both.
There is a little bit of both ways. I think I keep kind of like both voices at the forefront when writing.
It's nice that you are a team,
Yeah.
and there is not competition for you.
I want to see you. I'm just kidding.
Let's talk about the song Artifice. This song has a really great bouncy groove to it.
Yes.
And it kind of sets it apart a little bit from the album.
Right.
Can you
Yeah.
talk about that song and the placement of it on the album?
Sure. Yeah. One funny anecdote is that we always introduce this as our rocker jam, but the more times we've played this, especially in kind of the more formal rock clubs, the standing room venues, it's never a rock jam. It's just a nice
kind
moderate,
of bounce
moderate
a little.
sway.
It's a relative term.
Yeah.
As far as its placement on the record, I feel like I really battled with it having a place on the record at all.
Right.
But I think there's a lot to be said in giving like a breath to your listener, not just overwhelming somebody with this emotional depth and this atmosphere that you can create.
Right.
And so Artifice still lyrically holds some of the same thematic elements.
Yes.
But as far as sonically, it definitely kind of does give this breath or this new life to the record.
Yeah. It's funny how our breath is an upbeat song, where I feel like most artists have mostly upbeat songs. So that's a generalization.
Sure,
and then the breath would be like a quiet one.
Yeah,
Let's slow it down a bit. And ours is like, let's pick it up a bit for a second. Yeah. I think that one almost didn't make the album because our producer was like, it doesn't sound like anything else. But I think it does in its finished form. There's at least a thread that kind of goes through it. But.
Yeah, no, particularly lyrically, it certainly fits.
reach for the ground. Have I done at all to plant this seed and watch it sprout? Have I done at all? Have I done at all?
So one more song I want to talk about,
Yeah.
Hideout, contains the title line of the album, Holding Out for the Light Left On. So do you feel that this song contains somehow the overall theme of the record within it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. That song is about, so our whole album, we wanted to achieve this thread of like belonging, and I think that that's something that everyone is always seeking, is where what feels right to you authentically. It's about self-actualization, and holding out for the light left on is like referencing when, like, I don't know, you come home to either your home or someone who loves you, or your parents' home, and they leave the light on for you because they know you're coming home.
Right.
And then when you arrive, that light will go out because that's where you are meant to be. And so you can think of that in a literal form, you can think of that in a like internal form, but Hideout definitely is the summary of that place, that hideout literally,
Right.
or home that you belong in. Yeah.
Put away your robe and toss it in the fire to burn slowly. Play the part of aging of our iron. Hurry past the lines you've made, and it's all for the taking. Holding out for the light left on. Done are the days where I'll be told what you are.
So how do you feel you've both been, as we discussed earlier, writing songs for a long time now? You both started as teenagers.
Yeah.
How do you think you have changed as songwriters? Are there things you've gotten better at, or just process-wise things have changed?
It's a funny reflection. I think understanding how to capture a feeling for me has changed, and also not clouding that with unnecessary metaphors. I feel like my early writing stages were probably like incredibly heartfelt to a point that's just no one wants to listen to that. And then going into this more abstract stage in kind of like my early college years, and then it's kind of now evolved into this like still a little bit of ambiguity in the lyrics, not giving like too much away, but also learning how to like be a little bit more personal with
Right.
it. And yeah, so that would be, I think, my musical songwriting evolution.
Learning how to tell your truth.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah. I think like audiences can always tell when you're not being authentic. And I think that's the real joy of being a songwriter, is just like you can talk about your life really specifically and people will relate to that.
Yes.
And there's such beauty in that. Like you can get very, very specific and people will be like, me too.
Yes.
And
if it's real.
yeah, totally. And I think that makes the world feel much smaller. And yeah, in my own writing, I think I started in that, like, you know, very survey of things, meaning like just scratching the surface on the emotion.
Right.
Like, I'm sad now. But like when you can expand on that and like, I don't know, just be confident in telling your story, I think that confidence has grown, and I think it will continue to grow. I think that that's really exciting, and to trust audiences and listeners with your life and with your emotion, and
Right.
know that they can carry that for you. or with you, rather.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a change in your lives recently. You recently moved from Boston
To Virginia.
to Virginia. So
Yeah.
how do you see this move from a city lifestyle to a more country? How do you see it affecting your creative process or your music in general? Do you see any change since it's happened? Or
If I can use one of my curse passes, it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Very good.
That's my. Do you feel it the same way?
in what? Well, let's
just-
in what way?
So I guess I love cities so much. I mean, I thrive in that environment of like constant stimulation and so many things happening, and like everyone's pushing the envelope. But it also doesn't allow you to breathe. You're just challenged at all times, and that causes doubt. Like, am I doing enough? Like, everyone's struggling financially, creatively. Everyone is kind of in the same boat, and there's this beautiful bohemian component to that of just like, we'll be musicians and we'll spend all our money on rent and who cares. And but when we moved to the country, it like all of that noise just goes away, and you have the freedom to kind of create. I don't know, like it's just silent. Like I didn't even realize how much noise.
You
was
don't know it's there
constant.
until you leave it behind.
Yeah. I think the first night in our new apartment in Virginia, I don't think I slept because I was like, where's the car? Where's the ambulances?
Yeah.
Where's
So
everything?
silent.
Yeah.
So you're seeing that affect your creative process.
Yeah, because you can just like feel creative at any time of day. It's like this relief. Just everything feels better, and it's obviously more affordable. But I hate money anyway. Burn it all. But yeah, it causes that beautiful ease of release instead of just like feeling.
How about you, Chris?
Yeah.
This for you. This is Denny's going home. For
Yeah.
you, this
I
is
know,
going
this
home,
is new
so,
territory for
yeah.
me. And yeah, there's an artist by the name of Adrienne Lenker that the question posed was pretty similar in terms of city versus country and your artistic processes in both of those. And she described it as both of them being different types of like jungles.
Okay.
And like, you know, the city is just this chaotic jungle. But if you're in that and you love that, then that can give you so much inspiration. You can witness so much and have so many ideas just come to life through one train ride into the city.
Right.
And then being in the country, I feel that jungle is just, you know, you're surrounded by nature and it's so serene, and that can really put you in a really calming state that I find personally necessary in order to get to those places to write.
Are you ready to say it's fucking awesome? Yeah.
It's fucking awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. One thing that is like going back to writing and being specific about your life. One thing that was really lovely about moving home is that there's like this childhood version of me, the talent show, the Dorothy. There's that part of my life, and then I moved away from it for 7 years and like had this like second adolescence in a city and in it like so far, so different from Winchester, Virginia. And then moving home and having like those people back in your life, it kind of reminds you of who you are, and you feel like a complete person, and you can kind of look at these places.
Now the two parts are coming together.
Yeah, and so I feel very fulfilled and whole again, which is really nice, and I think it causes that creativity to be more confident because you can dig through all of these wells that you forgot you had. So yeah, it's great. I mean, the little town is little,
Yeah.
but we have one cool coffee shop, so it's
very cool.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
Well, I'm a big fan of the state of Virginia.
Yeah.
I spent some time there myself, so I can understand why you like it so much.
Yeah.
But I think we can leave it there. This was a great talk. I appreciate you taking the time. I'm really looking forward to the show we're going to have later this afternoon. And I'm looking forward to listening to the great record a few more times.
Yeah.
So thanks very much.
Thanks so
Thank you.
much.
hope you enjoy this episode of Tell You What, the podcast. Please check out our other installments, and you may find your next favorite band. Do yourself a favor, go listen to A Light Left On, the great new record from the West and Deni, and take in their amazing live show when you can. I think we'll be hearing a lot more from Chris and Deni as their careers move forward. Until next time, remember, music is the best.
Let's pick up where we left this. I wanna see your skin glow, emanating wildness. Forget of what surrounds us and return slow. We've been drowning in this orifice, creating names to blame for this, waiting for our footsteps. We're all in need of good rest.